In this video, we are going to deploy the backend to our server. The front end is already deployed on our server and available via HTTPS. And next, we are going to deploy the backend. The purpose of this video is to show you how quickly you can deploy a backend with my backend setup. And I will show you how I configure the environment variables in the backend. In the front end, I have configured the environment variables already with dotenv, the newer version of dotenv, and I'm going to do the same thing with my backend before I deploy it. So let's jump right in. First, we are going to install dotenv again, just like in the front end. This is the repository, and we just need to copy this and install it. Okay, we have installed dotenv now, and next we are going to change the package.json. So you have the scripts when we start our server, and that's the place where I'm going to load the environment variables from the environment files instead of loading it in the JavaScript file. And for this, I'm going to add something in front of the command here that loads the environment file, just like in the front end. So we need to add the environment parameter, and it looks like this. No, I forgot something. We need to call .env run first. So when we start the script, when we start the web server, the first thing that happens, it will call .env run, which loads the environment file. But we have to specify which environment file it should load, and we can do it with the parameter env. And in the GitHub you will find how to do this. So it should load the environment file called env local. And after the environment file is loaded, it should call node index.js. Okay, and I've already created two environment files, one for the local and one for production. So we can create two scripts here. Once for starting the server on my local machine, local, and it loads the local environment file, and one to start the server on prod, and it should load the environment file .env.prod before it starts the server. Okay, so let's jump back into the JavaScript file. In here I'm loading, I have a utils library where I load the environment files, and I'm using .env for this, and we don't need this anymore, so I can throw this out completely. Both of these things. Oh, I'm working on the working tree. So I'm throwing out the utils and load env, because then we can immediately use the environment variable which is stored in process env without having to load it first, because this is already happening here in the start scripts. And I'm doing the same thing in the index.js. Here I removed it already here. So we can immediately access process env host and process env port. Okay, I've decided that I want to remove the host, because in both cases this server is just going to run on the local host. We have an engine's reverse proxy running I will explain this later, but on our server, um, our Express.js server is only reachable via localhost on the specified port that I'm loading from the environment file. Okay, let's see if it runs. So I have the start script start local. Okay, that problem. So if you're on Windows, like I'm currently on Windows, and you want to run this, you will get an error, but only if you try to run it with npm. If you run this with yarn start local, then it will work. The injecting environment from env local, and it's loading the port from the environment file. And today I learned that you can actually add comments into the package.json. It looks a bit weird, but it goes like this. So in the top of your object definition, you can write this and then write your comment. It looks a bit strange, but I think it's a useful information for someone who wants to run this on Windows. And npm will just get rid of this and completely ignore this part. Okay, so our backend can run locally. So let's actually let it run locally, just to wrap it up before we deployed everything to the server. Let's also go back to the front end. And let's run the front end. So our front end is running on port 3000. Our backend is running on port 4001 currently. Okay, currently our front end thinks that the backend is reachable on port 4000. So I have to quickly change this. Because here it's running on 4001. Oh, what happened here? Okay, now we have the right endpoint for our local configuration. So let's see. The backend was called successfully, and we got back a result. Hello friends, this is my YouTube channel. Good. So we have everything in place now that I can deploy everything. I didn't change the port here in env-prod because on the productive system the endpoint will be reachable on port 4000 actually with HTTPS. So that's where our Nginx reverse proxy is listening, and it listens on port 4000 and takes the requests there and forwards them to our server running on localhost within the server on port 4001. Okay, so I need to commit this. Okay, now our changes are pushed to the Git repository. So let's connect to the server with my bat script. And let's clone the repository. So I think this is the important part of the video because it shows how quickly you take a finished project, put it on the server, and then have it running very quickly with HTTPS. Okay, let's see. The repository is cloned. Okay, first we have to run yarn install. Okay, so we have installed the packages, and next I'm going to explain you something how we are going to start this. So I have created an ecosystem configuration. That is a configuration that is used by the PM2 process manager. So this is how we are starting our server then on the productive environment. PM2 start ecosystem config. The ecosystem config is something that you can copy from our example projects. And in here you define the name, how the application is known then to the process manager, how it is listed. We define the port here, where it is running, the script and its arguments, how the server should be started. And additionally, we define the node environment and set it to production. Theoretically, you could put this in the node environment, into the environment files in here as well, but it is more a standard and common practice to to do this in the configuration file for the process manager. So what this does, it basically enables optimizations that aren't available when you run your server just in the development environment. If we run it in production, we get some extra optimizations. Okay, okay, so this is how we are going to start our web server. So let's do this. First we need to make the script runnable. And let's go. So our web server has already been running before, and now our backend is running as well. I've previously already updated the front end so that we have the newest version with everything. And now we also have the backend running. Let's quickly take a look into the logs of the backend. Okay, and here you can see HTTP server is running at HTTP localhost 4001. However, the front end is not calling localhost 4001. The front end, so the code that is running in the browser of our people who visit our website, is going to call HTTPS, then the domain of my server, and port 4000. This is because it first calls the Nginx reverse proxy that is contained in the backend setup. You don't have to care about this so much. And then the Nginx reverse proxy that basically sits at the beginning of our server then takes this request and forwards it within the server to HTTP localhost 4001. So here in our Express.js server, we don't even have to care about the certificates and anything. All of this is being managed by the Nginx reverse proxy. So let's see if this is running. Okay, first here's our website, which is running on HTTPS and forwarded to www. And go. And we have a reply already. It went very quickly. Here's the sentence with improved reading flow. Hello friends, the server is now running on production with HTTPS enabled. Hooray. Okay, so this worked. So let me summarize what we just did. I just configured the backend quickly to have all appropriate environment variables. I used .envx for this, and instead of loading .env in the JavaScript file, I'm loading with .envx the environment variables in the package.json when I start the server with the start scripts. Then I deployed everything on the web server just by the only thing I did was I pulled the code, I cloned the repository onto my web server, installed it, started the server, and it's already available now with HTTPS. Okay, that's it for today.